Welcome to this episode of The People Dividend. Here we are at season 7. I'm Mike Horne. I'm your host. I'm so delighted to have in our virtual studio today, Thad Price. What can I tell you about him? I think he'll be of particular interest to everyone who is in human resources or talent acquisition, people and culture work. Thad Price is the CEO of Austin-based Ready, Set, Hire in Talroo, and we're going to find out more about all of that. But Ready, Set, Hire is the new product for small to medium businesses, franchisees, and recruiters seeking to hire frontline and essential workers. I'm curious, and maybe we'll understand that with that a little bit later about essential workers. And is that still the COVID definition of essential workers? But this Ready, Set, Hire is powered by Talroo, a multi-award-winning talent matching platform for enterprises designed for sourcing essential and hourly workers. That has more than 20 years of experience in online recruitment, job search vertical, and is a recognized thought leader in the HR and talent acquisition space, and genuinely believes that there is no industry that plays a more integral role in the economy. He uses his cross-functional experience to turn client feedback into innovative products that continue Talroo's mission of improving lives, one job seeker and one employer at a time. Prior to joining Talroo, he was vice president of business development at job.com. Lots of ways to get in touch with Thad. We'll talk about those as we move forward with the show. So welcome, Thad. I'm so glad that you're here. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Mike, great to be here. Thank you so much. So I originally hail from the East Coast, moved to Austin about a little over 10 years ago. And it's been a great experience to enjoy all the fun and activities and growth here of Austin, Texas. Terrific town, a lot of innovative team members that we've been able to attract to build our team and to build, our products that make it successful here. So, Mike, as I mentioned, I think great people grow great companies, and it's our job as a vendor and a technology provider in the industry to ensure we're matching great people with great companies, and technology can ensure that we are following best practices to be able to do that and ensure that the matchmaking process is strong and effective for companies and job seekers alike.
Well, that's great. At one point in my HR career, I was head of talent acquisition at a technology company, and always found it to be quite challenging managing close to 100 recruiters, geographically dispersed around the world, always trying to find talent. And then, having progressed through an HR career and in a last role as an HR executive in a corporation, I was more involved in executive search and all that brought with it. So I'm so curious to learn from you, Thad, about search, where it is today, about Talroo. So, what are some of the challenges? Here we are, 2024. What are some of the challenges common in the TA world right now?
Well, the big thing is to level set and think about the actual function of talent acquisition. And when we think of talent acquisition and talent attraction, there's an art and science to it, right? There's the art of ensuring that, you're strong, that you're aligned with the right audiences, and that you ensure that you are using the all-powerful job posting as ad copy. And then we have the science, which is more about metrics, funnel progression, candidates through your all-powerful applicant tracking system, and understanding all of that, and understanding disposition and where candidates are in that process. And through that experience, we have this function that is talent acquisition, which is a lot like customer acquisition. And I think that's probably been the biggest change that we've seen as an industry over probably the last 10 years, is that more companies are focused on talent acquisition as a customer acquisition function. That looks like a lot more like marketing. And we're seeing that, especially with some of more of the enterprise customers, focusing on brand, focusing on the value behind what the employer brings, love kind of the buying cycle and the application and attraction cycle. And then, of course, metrics and data that help ensure that you're holding your talent acquisition process accountable to the right hires at the end of the day, based on those metrics and based on your company goals.
It's so interesting. And AI is really just, I would imagine, upending the world of talent acquisition. Recently, I gave a presentation to a global group, the International Biopharma Product and Portfolio Managers Conference. And my topic was AI and HR. And of course, so many of the examples that I shared with the audience, with the participants, were in the world of talent acquisition when it comes to thinking about job descriptions, as you mentioned earlier. What manager isn't using AI to develop job descriptions today? There are so many tools behind resume scanning and resume searching, and what are candidates using? Can you talk a little bit about AI and what it's doing in the world of talent acquisition?
Absolutely. It's transforming a lot of the processes. And I think, when I think of where AI can provide a lot of value, whether it's in human resources or whether it's in any function in society, it is allowing us to be more productive as a human in how we think about the connection with people and the connection with what we truly want to be doing. And I think when eliminating redundant tasks and using AI to be more successful at marketing copy, more successful at automating some processes that you don't have the time, energy, or effort in your daily life to complete, technology and software can be more effective at that. I think that's where, from a society perspective, there's a lot more productivity and honestly, probably a lot more happiness in our daily life to truly be doing what we want to be doing, which is what's special. And that's the human connection and ensuring that you're establishing relationships. If you think about the idea of attracting talent and recruiting talent, recruiting is a contact sport, right? It is a sport of connecting with people, having conversations with people, developing relationships. All this is important. And when people are making a decision to come take your offer, right, and your invitation to come join their company, that relationship is so important and can be the X factor in many ways for someone to decide, your company over another company, especially for a high value candidate. And so I think when we think about this idea of AI, I like to give a lot of our traditional processes a superpower. And that superpower allows us to do what we actually love. And that's what we signed up for. And that is changing lives and ensuring that the recruiters are recruiting the right talent to not only change the job seeker's life, but also help propel a company to its next generation of growth. And if we think about that idea of recruiting being in the life-changing business and the people that we bring to our company and that recruit to our company to help change the trajectory of our business for growth, it helps us really think about recruiting in a different light instead of this idea of, I need to fill a role. We need to fill the right candidate for the right company, for the right growth pattern that you're looking to achieve. And that's where I think there's a lot of opportunity in our space to improve that process, to focus on right candidate, right company, and right growth pattern. And I think that when we look at that writing in the industry today and where companies really want, right? They just don't want to hire a person. They want to hire someone that's going to be successful for the company, that can grow with the company. And as a company, you're in the life-changing business, not only changing the company's trajectory, but also the individuals.
In your bio, Thad, you describe some of your work with essential workers. What does that mean?
Yeah, essential workers, coming out of COVID, were, folks that we relied on to keep our economy moving forward. When you think of actual, CNA or healthcare worker or frontline delivery driver, anything like that helps move our economy forward is really when we think of the essential worker. Essential worker allowed us to really tools that we needed as an economy, in our homes during the pandemic. And when we think of essential workers, it's also a common way to think of frontline workers as well. And so essential workers are very important for moving our economy forward. in those times and in all times. And I think that a frontline team member is so important, and where we're seeing a lot of gaps in society today around service and how we're ensure that we're accommodating customers in a way that we need to be successful as a business.
And so where do you focus your business? Is it on selling a system, a piece of software, or is it tell me about that.
Absolutely. So traditionally with Talroo, we allow companies to orchestrate their job advertising through our platform. So recruitment, marketing, and job advertising globally. And today we focus all of our efforts in the US. And that's a fairly, large business. And so when you think of this idea of job advertising, traditionally it's been this idea of, I want to advertise on a job board, right? A Monster, Career Builder, Indeed, ZipRecruiter. These are marketplaces and job boards. And so how we think about it is this idea of how consumer marketing has moved into this idea of audiences, right? And so today, if let's say you're a business, let's say that you're a car dealership. Car dealerships will go and they'll advertise to consumers that are in market to buy a car. And Google and Meta and all these companies have data to predict if you're probably in that moment of buying a car based on your behavior, what you're clicking on, what you're looking at, articles, whatever may be happening on or off the platform of choice that they're using. And so our thought process around this is that, could we move the conversation from this idea of a place and time of a job board to using data and finding audiences, talent audiences that exist either on platform or off platform based on behavior, and ensuring that we were connecting the right talent audiences with the right jobs and using that data to be targeted in our approach. And so the Talroo platform, which is, won a number of awards in the industry, and how we think about it, traditionally has spent our time focused on enterprise companies that have large budgets. What we found about 2.5 years ago when we were experimenting with small and medium-sized businesses is that really the opportunity is to provide more process and best practices and experience. And that led us to essentially building Ready, Set, Hire as a platform that leverages Talroo's talent audiences in the event that you don't have an applicant tracking process, or you don't have a way to enforce best practices with recruitment marketing or with talent attraction. And so that brought us Ready, Set, Hire. And so we're excited about that. So the whole idea is, gone are the days of posting a job on a job site that we've all heard, we post and pray, to audiences, data, and ensuring that there are applicants, qualified applicants, being driven directly into the applicant tracking system, and to save you time, money, energy, all the things that talent acquisition and recruiting leaders need more of in their life.
It sounds pretty complex or complicated. I mean, it sounds like, I don't mean the process, but I mean the technology. It sounds like it's a fairly robust technology, Talroo, that would inform Ready, Set, Hire. Is that right? Or
That's absolutely right. So if you think of the best products in the world, you're like, Google works really well. You type in something and you get great results. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes to make Google a successful search engine. And that's similar to how we think about Talroo when we sync jobs directly from the applicant tracking system at the enterprise level. Now, at the small business level, what you typically find is you don't have the luxury of having a talent acquisition team, right? Enterprise businesses will have a talent acquisition team, in some cases, a recruitment marketing function that enforces those best practices. But if you're a business owner, in many cases, you've never, you really learned the idea of recruiting and talent acquisition through just experience. And that's fine. But if we can help provide best practices that we see through our lens that enterprise businesses are practicing, and ensure that is focused in front in a platform, we can be successful. And so, a very simple way to think about it is, as we said earlier, generative AI has really helped the idea of demystifying a job posting. And so in our product, Ready, Set, Hire, you go through Ready, Set, Hire. You can start with a job posting template that's been, that we've used generative AI to build based on all the data that we have access to that's successful. Once you've built your job ad, you can add your employer branding. You can upload a header image just as you would through Meta or through Google Places or another system you may be using to advertise your business from a consumer marketing perspective. Then as you set up your job, it comes to life. You see it come to life, almost like building a web page. And then once you do that, we give you salary suggestions on in your market and job, how much you should pay to be successful to attract the talent. Because if you're not being focused and you're not being successful at the salary and how much you're willing to pay, you're not going to get the folks applying for your job and raising their hand and say, I want to come work for you. Then once we go through that process, we're then using all the data that we have from a lot of our enterprise companies around what certifications and requirements you should include to ensure you're getting the right candidate to apply for your job. When you apply for a job as a job seeker, those requirements are surfaced in a chatbot-like experience that then tries to qualify you for the job. And if you are qualified for the job and you've enabled your calendar, we will then immediately surface available time slots on your Google Calendar or Outlook calendar in the chatbot for the qualified candidate to immediately select. And that will immediately be updated in your calendar. And so when we think about a small business, what a small business wants is they want to talk to people. More importantly, they want to talk to qualified candidates that want to come work for their business, and they want interviews in their calendar. And that's exactly in a very simple way, that's exactly what we're looking to solve for with Ready, Set, Hire is you want people that want to come work for your business and that are qualified, and you need to talk to them with interviews. And then there are all of these other features that we add, like we have interview guides that are provided in the product as well, and assessments that help to try to qualify the candidate. One interesting thing about our product, we're in the process of changing this and making this a feature, but it's somewhat throws a wrench into how people think about recruiting today. And that is when we first launched the product, we didn't require resumes. And the reason why we didn't require resumes is because many frontline and essential workers, they don't have their resume handy because they're on a mobile device searching for jobs. And so instead, we have assessments that are sent directly to the candidates and those assessments are generated by generative AI based on what would mean, how you would answer certain questions based on the role and based on your experience and based on your skills. So, that was one lesson we learned where our industry is still focused on the all-powerful resume, just as we're still focused on the all-powerful job posting. And so, we're having a deployment soon that will address that. But the idea is to be relevant with the candidate and to provide more data beyond a stale resume and to help and ensure that the candidate's selling, their qualifications and their skills to the employer, and the employer is selling why they're an employer of choice to the candidate. And that's when winning happens, when it comes where the job seeker is happy, they're getting a great job with great pay. The employer is happy because they're finding the right candidate that's going to help take their business to the next level.
Where's LinkedIn fit into all of this?
So traditionally, LinkedIn is focused on more knowledge worker recruitment.
I see, yes.
White collar recruitment, as we refer to. That's why we think of essential workers, frontline workers, and knowledge worker, being very different. I think that's one of also the opportunities in the industry. As you think of this idea of a frontline worker, there's a lot more turnover that you would find in those instances. And our goal, as we think about our product moving forward, is how can we ensure, from a company perspective, that you are activating your talent pool and that you are growing your talent pool. And I think when we think of successful team members that you may have had in your company or in the past, and I think the team members that we've had here at Talroo, when you're able to help someone grow their career, there's a lot of loyalty that is developed. Where there's probably an opportunity in the industry also today is when you think of LinkedIn, it's about your personal network and you growing, whether that's within the company that you're working with or whether it's outside of the company that you're currently working with. And I think there's a really great opportunity to help frontline workers grow within the company they're working in, the company where they're hired. And I feel there's some investment in that space, but there's a lot more work to do.
So true. And what about ghosting in these? It happens in professional roles, but I would imagine the problem continues to occur in hiring for frontline and essential worker roles. What about ghosting?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first I would say is let's level set in shame on us as an industry because, we're in an industry where we ghost candidates when we think of like speed. And so although ghosting has been, one of the main topics that we've heard a lot of over the last probably a few years, it's been happening with candidates since the beginning of the applicant tracking system.
Right. Yes.
That is, I apply to a job and I never hear back. The black hole of applying. And part of this, as I think about ghosting, there are some definitely ways to solve that. And we'll dive into that in a bit. But when I think of ghosting, I almost think of like, here the job seeker is that's applying for jobs, never hearing back. And if you think of the psychology behind that, and then the job seeker not responding to an interview or to an ad, there's a part of me that thinks that, hey, this is just what's expected because, hey, I apply to employers. And I know that's not the right way to think about it, but I'm sure that's the psychology, what happens today. So that's the first thing to mention. The second thing to mention is probably when we think of job seekers, one of the reasons why this ghosting occurs is because just the massive amount of job applications that are just being generated today, that are being processed today. And our feeling of it is that it's important to drive high intent candidates to not solve 100% the ghosting problem, but at least ensuring that you're submitting quality candidates that have a high intent and a higher probability of showing up. I think that, there are ways to improve ghosting and connecting with candidates faster when they apply for jobs. But quality is one of the key components of that in ensuring you're driving high intent candidates.
We need more interactive chat boxes in talent acquisition, don't we? I mean, so that candidates can find out what's going on and where the status of their application is.
Absolutely. If you think of, you think of an e-commerce process, right? Of you shopping online, you know exactly when you buy something, when it's being delivered, if you bought it, when you can expect it. And, there's a lot of transparency in transactions when you buy online, and unfortunately, even though that process is a funnel, when we think of an all powerful applicant tracking process, we really don't know, a job seeker really don't, a black hole, right? You apply to a job and you never hear back. You really don't know where you are in that process. And I think that that's something that, needs to change. The challenge with that is there really isn't a standard, right? That companies follow, a standard operating procedure or process that companies follow. And I think that is, I think that's something that as an industry, we could do a better job of.
So I'm Amazon. I have 1,000% turnover, or I'm Walmart, and I don't know what the turnover there is. But high volume hiring presents unique challenges. What's the best approach?
So the best approach, there are a couple of approaches, right? The first is ensuring that you're reaching the right talent audiences and the right candidates. And the first is be transparent in the job posting. I think that as an industry, we underestimate the power of the job posting and how it can ensure that you're setting right expectations with candidates and with job seekers. It's still marketing copy. We have to be transparent and focused on, the type of candidate that's going to be successful, what you can expect on the job, and ensure that when folks are applying for that job, that they know what they can expect and how important it is. Salary expectations, whatever that may be, are important. Benefits. The more transparent that we can be in the job posting, the more successful companies like Talroo can be at matching candidates and matching, talent with the right opportunities to grow their career. So that's the first thing. The second thing is in high turnover, in high volume hiring, realize that speed is everything. The faster that you connect with a candidate, the more successful you're going to be, because there's a sense of urgency. And one of the reasons why this is so important today is when you think of the gig marketplaces that have emerged over the last number of years, where anyone can turn on an app and start working and generating cash. There's a sense of urgency there, and there's a sense of process, which I think we could, as an industry, we can learn a lot from that experience when we think of what it means to onboard with Uber and what it means to onboard with Lyft or DoorDash or any of these marketplaces where you can download the app, turn on, and start making money tomorrow. This process, as we think about high volume hiring, is something that I think we could, as an industry, use to be more successful in ensuring that there is, that there's process and there's speed. And so speed to candidate is the other thing that I would mention that's so important in high volume hiring. And the third is this idea of where can you grow and where you can go. And what I mean is, where do you grow and where you can go is this idea of, I'm starting here in this delivery driver position. Where can I go? And how can you help me grow into my next opportunity at the company? In many companies, when you think of this idea of, marketplace and, marketplace gig-based work, it's very transactional. I'm delivering something or prompt. I'm going to generate some cash from that experience. Well, we're in an environment where people are doing that because they want flexibility. They want to be able to grow. But the reason why they're doing that is because they get flexibility. And number two is they get to be able to generate income pretty quickly. Well, but those marketplaces don't allow you to grow your career. Mm-hmm. That's a very transactional experience. And we need to start connecting with our candidates around this idea of growing your career. And that is very different than a transactional employment experience. And I think the companies that think of high volume hiring roles as a gateway into something larger are very successful. And the companies that think of high volume hiring as just, I need to fill this rec right now because I have this pain, are unsuccessful long term.
So interesting. And at least according to some of the research that you shared with me, it costs about $670 to hire one of these essential frontline workers, or however you want to think about the hire. So how do you really bring down these hiring costs, which are so important in a small or medium-sized business, any enterprise, while really improving the quality of the hire?
Yeah, great question. So the first way to think about that is retaining your team and ensuring that you have a way in which you're focused on what's important to the individual. And if you think about the cost to hire, you can always look at ways to bring down hiring costs, whether it's being more, whether it's where you advertise, how you attract these talents, but how you attract the talent. But at the end of the day, what you're looking to do is you're looking to bring down, is to focus on retaining your team. And if you think of career track planning, what's old is new again, is one of the things that you can really do to ensure that people know that there is, that you have their North Star in mind. And their North Star is, what you can provide them and how they're going to provide value so that you reward them. So I think the biggest idea I would say is focus on retaining your team and ensure that you are giving them a path to grow internally. The other way to think about this, when you think of like the cost per hire, because the way I address it is the cost per hire is the cost per hire in many cases. Like we can do a couple things to optimize it, but where you really get the lift is if you can ensure that you are focused on your current team, so you don't have to replace your team, as much churn in your team. The second thing to think about is ensuring and I can't tell you how many times, we've had this happen with customers, or, we've had it internally in my experience as well, where, you're looking at compensation and you don't really take into account the cost to fill that position by someone new. And so you're not truly compensating your current employee the way you should, your current team member the way you should. And if that person leaves and you have to, fill that position, then you just have to you end up paying more to the candidate when you could have paid the existing candidate, and the existing employee the same as the amount of the recruitment rate that you're now paying the new candidate. And I think that is a time-honored lesson that we all, as practitioners and talent acquisition leaders, probably have some experience around. And I think we could do a better job of setting those expectations and ensuring that we're, in tune to the market, and to ensure we have retaining team members based on market trends top of mind through compensation.
There's so much that's changing relative to pay transparency. I think we've been dealing with it. I'm in California. We've certainly been dealing with it for several years, at least here, in terms of market-based pay. Can you say a little bit about that?
Well, when we think of compensation and we think about pay, what I always share is some companies, and of course there are some areas where it's a legal requirement to be transparent in pay. And I think that's good, right? It's good for the job seeker. It's good for the employer. And any transparency that you can provide, whether it's pay or any type of benefit, and if setting the record straight. And what I mean by that is, what you have to think about is whether, let's say that you're working on a rec and you're writing a job ad and you're not being transparent for whatever reason, right? Maybe you're concerned, maybe there's fear. What you have to realize is they're going to figure out and connect the dots on their own, whether it's Glassdoor or whether it's another
a coworker, an employee, right?
Somewhere, right? They're going to connect the dots. So wouldn't you rather set the record straight and be transparent on what you can expect? Instead, you're allowing someone to connect the dots on their own through a former employee, another platform, whatever that may be, and you really don't get to control that narrative. And so I think we're in this, from our perspective, as an industry, we need to just realize that we should control the narrative, because you don't want to lose out on great talent. And if you're transparent, people know what they want, they know what they're going to get. And the folks that it won't, essentially work for, whatever that may be, they'll opt out through the process, and you won't waste your time, on the candidates that may not be a fit based on whatever requirements you have as an employer.
Second to the last question, Thad Price, is when you see a sudden spike in turnover, what do you analyze first? What do you look for?
First thing you would do is look at trends within a department. Really dig in and see if there's something unique to that department. Ask a lot of questions to your current team members. Kick off a number of conversations with folks that are potentially close to that process. Also look at compensation and see if, hey, are we in market? Are we out of market? Hopefully have some exit interviews as well with folks to get some feedback on what may be happening and what we can do a better job of as a company. So I think the real key is really diving into maybe dynamics within a department or within a role, and seeing if there's something that's specific to that role or department, or something that's more systemic to the overall organization as a course a whole.
And in these platforms that you have, Ready, Set, Hire, and Talroo, can you screen in for values or hire for certain sets of values, or how does that all relate? I mean, it seems such an interesting topic.
Not today. As we think about it, we, from our perspective, that today, as companies start to crew page, which they can do, where they can share their North Star, their company value, all of that is transparent and available for job seekers. So from that perspective, today when we think about it, it's more of a, can I help you learn about the company? And through learning about the company,
It's good.
can you make a decision if this is a fit, if this is interesting and a fit for you? And, but I see that in the future as we think about job seeker experience and as we think about employer experience, at the end of the day, we want to provide great candidates that are going to be a great fit for an employer. And I think that is the missing link today in the industry that someone will solve. That is for sure.
And Thad Price, if people wanted to learn more about Ready, Set, Hire and Talroo and to be in touch with you, how would they do that? Where would they, and they'll find this in the show notes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can connect with us on readysethire.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect, answer any questions you may have. Always looking to share stories of talent acquisition and HR experience and learn from those stories, that your listeners would potentially share as well.
Okay, that's great. We'll have that all in the show notes about how to get in touch with Thad Price, CEO of Austin-based Ready, Set, Hire and Talroo. It just sounds like amazing work that Thad and his organizations are doing in terms of hiring frontline and essential workers, and so much more to explore in that regard with Thad Price and Ready, Set, Hire and Talroo. So just a last question, Thad, before I let you go, is if you were to prognosticate on the remainder of hiring for the rest of 2024, I mean, what one or two pieces of advice would you give to our HR listeners, our audience, our business leaders on the call?
Yeah.
On the podcast episode today.
I think it's important to ensure that we are intentional around the connection to job seekers and candidates and treat the candidates as our consumers. And what I mean by that is the same candidates that are applying for your jobs or the same candidates that are, shopping at your, at your store or dining in your restaurant or consuming your services. And so we should treat our candidates like we treat our consumers. And if businesses do more of that and provide a great level of candidate experience and service, then we can turn the tide in how job seekers think about the black hole and how we will be together more successful as an industry.
It's been such a delight to have as a guest on the People Dividend today, Thad Price, CEO of Ready, Set, Hire and Talroo. And I've really enjoyed learning more about what's going on in talent acquisition for frontline and essential workers. And you've just been a source of inspiration, a source of wisdom, and a source of wealth, Thad Price. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. Great to be here. Appreciate the invite, and I hope you have a lovely day.
Yeah, and until the next episode of the People Dividend, stay well.